I forgot what I was supposed to say when I came out of here. And my wife knows that I'm having that trouble forgetting a lot. And she wrote some things down on paper for me to just say. I even forgot the first thing she said I was supposed to say when I got on here. Oh, here it is. Good evening. I hope you will forgive me for appearing for you in this condition. However, before you condemn me too severely for being here like this, I must say that I have a very good reason for being loaded tonight. I've been drinking all day. I don't want to confuse you folks. I spoke with my wife, but I've been married 3 times. But my first 2 wives each died a very tragic death. My first wife died from eating poisoned mushrooms, and my second wife died from a fractured skull. She wouldn't eat her mushrooms. My wife was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. And she has a big family back there, and we go back every once in a while and visit for a while. And I love her family. I really sincerely do, very, very much. They're just wonderful, everyday, down-to-earth folks, you know, plain, no, not the brightest people in the world. She has 4 or 5 sisters, 4 or 5 brothers, and they just. She has one brother-in-law. His name is Frank. Carrie's husband, but you don't know Carrie. But anyway, Frank loves to fish, and I love fishing too. And we were there in the wintertime visiting one day, and Frank wanted me, I guess he wanted me to go ice fishing with him. And he was out in the yard with his bees, well, you don't care about his bees, but he got a bunch of them. One of them forgot where he laid his honey, and he was helping him find it. Did you get it? When you get my age, you won't be getting it yet. And so Frank, I always forget this one. Frank, he came in the house. From outside. And he walked out to me and said, Ed, Tom, Bob, Scott, oh, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Foster. Foster? I said, what? He said, would you like to go ice fishing? I said, yeah, I would like that. So we got in his car, and he was driving, and we started out for the lake. And we went through 12 red lights. I said, Frank, who taught you how to drive? He said, my cousin. We came to the next corner, the light was green, he stopped dead. I said, what'd you stop for? He said, my cousin might be coming the other way. We got down to the lake, and when we got down there, we discovered we didn't have any bait. Bait! And there was a little shack off to one side, had a sign on it, bait for sale. We went inside, there was a gentleman behind the counter, and my brother-in-law said, how much is bait? He said, oh, I can have all you want for $1. He said, good, give us $2 worth. We got out on the lake and we were fishing through one of those little holes. Pretty soon a couple of fellows came whizzing by in a snowmobile. My brother-in-law said, hey, that's what we ought to be doing. I said, what? He said, trolling. I had one brother-in-law went ice fishing one day, brought home 200 pounds of ice. His wife fried it, and they both drowned. Two other brothers-in-law went out one day. When they came home, I said, you have any luck? One of them said, no, we didn't catch anything. I said, what happened? He said, well, by the time we got a hole cut in the ice big enough for the motorboat, we were too tired to fish. Why'd you do that? I have to knock her down 3 or 4 times a night. My late father-in-law was a Navy sea captain, ship's captain, and just before he passed away, like they do sometime, his last request was that he be buried at sea. 2 of my brothers-in-law drowned digging his grave. One of my sisters-in-law started messing around, you know. Even had a nerve enough to take a fellow right in their own house. I mean, he was right in there, way in their own house there. He looked over his shoulder and saw her husband come up the front sidewalk, and he said, where's the back door? She said, we don't have one. He said, where would you like one? Another sister-in-law did the same thing. And the fellow said, what about your husband? She said, don't worry about him. He's a complete idiot. Sure enough, her husband came home, didn't see her in the living room, dining room, the kitchen, looked at the bedroom. There they were. He said, hey, what are you two doing? She said, see, didn't I tell you? I think my sister-in-law came. Anyway, he took a 45 pistol out of a drawer, and he held it up to his head just like this. And she started laughing. He said, don't laugh, you're next. I was in a drugstore this morning, And a little boy came in, one of the cutest youngsters I've seen in a long time. Could have been over six years old. His little chin just barely got up to the countertop. And the druggist said, "Could I help you, Sonny?" He said, "Yes, sir, please. I would like some Tampax." He said, "For mommy or sissy?" He said, "No, sir, it's for my little 4-year-old brother." He said, "You say it's for your little brother?" He said, "Yes, sir. We just heard him say on television that if you use Tampax, you can ride a horse and swim and play tennis, and he can't do any of those things." I suppose I've got to be the worst golfer in the whole world, but I play once in a while. Haven't been able to for quite a while because of my knees. But anyway, I kept hitting them too much. I guess that's what ruined my knees. But I knocked the ball over in the rough where I thought for years that's where you're supposed to play, because that's where I always am, you know. And I went over looking for my ball. It was right near the wooded area. And there were two little boys in the woods there, and they were wee-weeing up against a tree. I heard one of them say, "I wish I was big enough to hold mine with 3 fingers." So it said, "You are holding yours with 3 fingers." He said, "I know, but I'm peeing on 2 of them." My brother Frank, Carrie's husband, brother-in-law. Well, he's my sister-in-law's husband, and I like to call him my brother-in-law because he's such a nice person. And he went into a bar one Saturday morning, and he was drunk. And they wouldn't sell him a drink because of that, and he was upset about it, standing there looking around. He said, "What's that? What is that over on the wall?" The bartender said, "That's a dartboard." He said, "You won't give me a drink? Can I play darts?" He said, "No, you can throw that thing and maybe hit somebody with it and hurt them very much. I'd lose my license." He said, "Can I throw just one of them?" He said, "Oh, what am I going to do with this fella, for heaven's sake? I can't do well, all right. I'll make a deal with you. I'll let you throw 1 dart if you promise me you will leave." He says, that's a deal. So he handed him a dart, and he threw it, and he got a bullseye. He said, "Hey, how you like that? I got a bull. I hit it right in the middle." He said, "You sure did. Now you win first prize. Now you can go home." He said, "Well, where's my prize?" The bartender said, "Well, why did I say that? We don't give prizes." And he looked under the counter of the bar, and there was a turtle about that big around underneath there. He'd gotten for his little boy. He said, "Well, I'll get him another one." So he said, "Here's your prize," and he handed my brother-in-law the turtle. And he walked out. Next week, he came back in there. And there was another bartender who knew nothing about that which had transpired. And he said, "Before you ask me, fella, I can't give you a drink. You look like you had too much already." He said, "I don't care. I just came in here to play darts." He said, "I can't let you play darts in your condition." He said, "Well, I was in here last Saturday and I played darts." He said, "Oh, really?" He said, "You're darn right. And I don't mind telling you, I won first prize." He said, "You won first prize?" He said, "I sure did." He looked at me, he said, "What was the prize?" He said, "A roast beef on a hard roll." Isn't that awful? I have a very good friend, Gene Autry, and his wife, Jackie. And we go places sometimes together, and my brother-in-law, Frank, loves the old Gene Autry movies. So I took him to one of the movies one day. Just before we went into the theater, I said, I'd like to make you a little bet about your big old cowboy friend. He said, what's that? I said, I'll bet you $5 before the picture's over he falls off his horse. He said, well, now you have a bet. We went in and saw the picture. Sure enough, Gene Autry fell off his horse. Outside, and Frank was trying to give me the $5. I said, I can't take it, Frank. He said, what? Why not? I said, because I already saw the picture. I knew he was going to fall off. He said, well, I know. I saw it too, but I didn't think he'd fall off again. No, I was going to tell him a story I got from a friend of mine named Alvy Moore. He's a good actor and a good friend. And I met him coming down the street one night, and he had a lantern in his hand. I said, where are you going with a lantern, Alvy? He said, I'm going courting. I said, courting with a lantern? He said, yeah. I said, well, when I went courting, I didn't take a lantern with me. He said, yeah, and look what you got. My brother-in-law, Frank, Carrie's husband, was not always the nicest person in the world. One day, he got put in jail for borrowing $10 from his wife. And, of course, he had to knock her down 3 or 4 times before she'd let him have it. But anyway, he was robbing a house one time, and all he had in his hand was a flashlight. He was shining around in the first room he went into, and he heard a voice say, Jesus is going to get you. He looked around, he didn't see anything. Went in the next room, heard a voice say, Jesus is going to get you. He shined the light over in the corner, there was a big parrot in a cage. And the parrot said, Jesus is going to get you. He said, you better shut up, I'll pull every feather out of your head. He went in the next room, and he heard, and he looked over in the corner, and there's a great big brown and black Doberman pincer. And the parrot yelled out, get him, Jesus. Oh, I went to the doctor. I went to the doctor for a physical checkout, and after he gave me whatever it was I went there for, he said, put your clothes on and come in the office, I want to talk to you. He said, come over here a minute. I walked over with him to the door, and he pushed the door open. He said, you see that doorway down at the end of the hall? I said, I only see one door, and it's way down there. He said, that's the one I'm talking about, way down there. I said, yes, sir, I see that. He said, inside on the counter, there's a little little tin pan, and it has some sticks in it, like tongue depressors. And they've been medically treated, and I want you to wee-wee on one of those sticks. I said, from here? I said, I couldn't do that in your hand. He said, no, I don't want you. That's silly. Don't talk like that. I want you to go in there and do that. I said, what's that going to prove? He said, well, if the stick turns purple, you have diabetes. And if your shoes turn yellow, you missed the stick. He said, well, let me put it this way. I got some bad news and some good news. I said, okay, give me the bad news. He said, well, it's all according to how you regard something such as this, but you do show very definite signs of homosexuality. I said, I do? He said, you sure do. I said, well, if that's the bad news, what in the world could the good news be? He says, the good news is I think you're cute. You know, last May the 11th, I reached my 79th birthday. And I woke up that morning, got all freshened up and went out to the breakfast room. Thought, sure, my wife. I knew I'd been here too long. I thought my wife would say happy birthday, but she didn't. Our two daughters joined me at the breakfast table, and each of them said, good morning, Daddy, but neither one of them said happy birthday. So when I got in the car to go to the studio office for a while, I was feeling pretty low. I have this young lady about 27 years old, one of the prettiest young ladies you've ever seen, and she's my secretary. And as soon as I walked in the door, the first thing she said was, happy birthday, Mr. Brooks. That made me feel real good. And she said, today the treat is on me. Whoa, well now. I said, what did you have in mind? She said, I'm taking you to lunch. 12 o'clock in her car out this secluded little spot. We had a wonderful luncheon, and I had 6 or 7 drinks. And on the way back to the office, she said, Mr. Brooks, I think it's much too beautiful a day to waste going back to the office. Why don't we stop at my place, have a few more drinks if you'd like, and relax a little bit? Well, I was all for that. We went up there, and I had 5 or 6 more drinks, and she suddenly said, Mr. Brooks, if you'll excuse me, I'll step into the bedroom and change into something a little more comfy. Well, she went in there, and in no time at all, bedroom door opened, out walked my secretary with my wife and my 2 daughters and the big birthday cake, singing happy birthday. And there I was sitting on the couch with nothing but my socks on. My wife and I never have sat around the house and discussed women's lib group, you know, never. As long as she does everything I tell her, why, everything will be all right and everything. But she wanted to find out about something about it. And so she told me one morning she was going to her first women's lib meeting that day. Well, I didn't care, so she left, she went. I came home that afternoon, stepped in the door, expecting to get that little kiss I've been getting down through the years, and by George, it wasn't there that day. Instead, she was standing across the room, backed up against the wall, her arms folded, with a big stare on her face, staring at me like I started the war. And She said, "From now on, Buster, you're doing the dishes around here." And she took her blouse off and slammed it on the floor. And then she took her bra off and she slammed that down on the floor. I said, "Gee, hon, you're beautiful." She said, "You're going to clean the windows, do the dusting, the mopping, the vacuuming, all the housework from now on. How do you like that?" I can't get over it. You're really beautiful. She said, "On the weekend, you're going to rake the lawn, get the weeds and the twigs from the trees and everything, and shove everything in the garbage sack and take it out front for the garbage man. How does that grab you?" I said, "I just can't get over how beautiful you are." She said, "I don't understand you. Here I'm telling you all the things you're going to have to be doing around here in the future. All you do is stand there and tell me I'm beautiful." I said, "Well, just now, when you took your bra off, your bazoom fell down and pulled all the wrinkles out of your face, and you're beautiful." I was way down south not so long ago, and I saw some property I thought maybe I might like to invest in, so I called my wife up. I said, "Hon," she said, "What?" I said, "I'm going to buy a condominium." She said, "I don't care. I'm going to take the pill anyway." I said, "A condominium is something you rent out." She said, "Well, if you don't get better, I'm going to give it away." Did I tell you the one about my wife? We were in a car in a shopping center, and she asked me to stop in front of a little store because she wanted to go in and buy a new bra. Did I tell you that? Did I? Oh, thank you. I forgot the story. She said, "Hun, stop over here, that little green place there." And I understand it's a very nice little store, and I want to go in and buy a new bra. Well, maybe I shouldn't have said what I said, but I was just kidding, trying to get a laugh out of her, so make something I got out of her. And I know I said it because I was there. I heard it. I said, "What do you want to buy a new bra for? You haven't got anything to put in it." She said, "Well, you buy shorts, don't you?" I was getting ready to come out here before you nice folks, and all dressing rooms have full-length mirrors for you to check yourself up on, make sure you're presentable to you folks, and make sure you don't have any lint on your clothes. And I have a suit made out of lint. It picks up blue serge. Anyway, I was standing there and I was dressing, just brushing myself off and everything. I said, "Uh-oh." And my wife said, "What's wrong?" I said, I almost walked out there in front of all the nice folks with my fly open. She said, "Why not? Dead men don't fall out of windows." One of my brothers-in-law went home one night and he was drunk as a hoot owl. We say that all the time. I've never seen a drunken hoot owl. But anyway, he walked in the house. His wife said, You come home drunk like this one more time, I'm cutting out all your sex. And he said, you don't even know where I'm getting it. Well, you've been awfully nice, ladies and gentlemen, put up with all this foolishness. I can't imagine a man my age doing all that crazy stuff. Well, here's a song I'm going to try to sing, and I hope I can make it. What key is that? C? May. That's my first note? All right. Make the world go away. Take it off my shoulder. Say the things you used to say. And make the world go away. Do you remember when you loved me? Before the world took me astray. If you do, then forgive me and make the world go away. Make the world go away. Take it off my shoulder. Say the things you used to say. And make the world go away. That's very nice of you folk. I was, I wanted to tell, I know what I wanted to tell you. And I might not too if I feel like it. But my wife Terry and I celebrated our 40th. No, we didn't. Last May the 13th, we celebrated our 41st wedding anniversary. I said, well, thank you. And they said it wouldn't last 6 months, but we had to make it go 9 because she was pregnant. And she said to me one night, "Hon, I think the baby's coming." And I looked out the door. I didn't see a child in the neighborhood. Well, anyway, I said we celebrated, but we had a couple of folks over. I think that did it. And we went to bed rather late that night. And I was lying there looking up into the darkness, you know, thinking like a man would at a time like that about his wedding night and the natural things, you know, that married couples think about when they're married. And I said, I didn't make a move. And I said, it certainly wasn't like this 41 years ago, was it, hon? And she says, no, it certainly wasn't. I said, boy, if I remember correctly, I didn't even take time to take my socks off. She said, I know, and tonight I could take the time to knit a pair. My brother-in-law, Frank, called me up one day and said, will you come over and help me? I said, sure, what's the trouble? He said, I locked my keys in my car. I said, yeah, I'll come over right away. He said, well, hurry, because it's raining and the top is down. He was riding down a highway in New York one day and speeding, and the police started after him, and he kept speeding up, you know, and finally they caught him and pulled him over. Said, didn't you hear the siren and see the red lights behind you? He said, yeah, I saw them. He said, why did you keep speeding up like you did? He said, well, about 3 weeks ago, my wife ran away with a highway patrolman, and I thought he was bringing her back. Riding down the highway with Boyd, the producer of this, what we're doing, and we saw a car zigging and zagging and zigging and zagging, you know, right in front of us, and pretty soon that car just boomed right over in the ditch on its side, and I said, Boyd, would you go back there and check out and see if we can be maybe we can be a nice guy, you know? And he went back and he looked in and the window was open and he could tell that the gentleman driving in the car was a man of the cloth, and. He said, excuse me, sir, are you hurt? He said, of course I'm not hurt. The Lord is riding with me. He said, well, you better let him ride with us. You're going to kill him. These three guys died at the same time and went up to the pearly gates and they saw St. Peter. And said, well, here we are, St. Peter, we're ready to come in. He said, well, now, wait a minute. I have to ask you questions first. I said, oh, okay. Start with me. He said, did you ever cheat on your wife? He said, no, sir. No, sir. I was tempted many times, but never fell to the temptation. I never cheated on my wife. Not once. He said, all right, then you get to ride around heaven and see all the beautiful sights in that beautiful Cadillac convertible over there. So away he went. Next guy came up, and he said, did you ever cheat on your wife? He said, well, I'm afraid so, yes, sir, about twice. I was tempted, and I went on through it about 2 times. He said, well, I'm sorry. You'll have to ride around heaven in that Volkswagen convertible. And he said, well, I deserve it, I guess. The third guy came up. He said, did you ever cheat on your wife? He said, heck yeah. Many times. If I was down there right now, I'd probably be cheating on her. He said, well, then I'm sorry, you're going to have to go around heaven and see the sights on that skateboard. He said, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. So away he went, and pretty soon he saw the Cadillac parked up at a corner by the curb. The guy was in there, a dejected look on his face and everything. And he skated up by him. He said, you get to ride around heaven in this beautiful Cadillac, and you're sitting here looking like you lost your last friend. He said, what happened to you? He said, I just saw my wife go by on a skateboard. I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. I'll tell you something you don't know. I know you folks remember when President Nixon was in office, and he had to have a physical checkup at Bethesda Naval Hospital every year. All presidents do. And he went in to have his checkup one time, and the doctor said, okay, Mr. President, get your clothes on and come in the office. I want to talk to you. He said, okay. So he went in the office. He said, what's the story? He said, you may be the healthiest president we've ever had in the White House. I just have to take one more test. And if it turns out all right, you will be the healthiest president we've ever had in the White House. So he said, I want you to take this little bottle, take it home. After dinner, don't eat anything, snacks or anything, and don't drink anything. In the morning, take this in the bathroom with you, and bring it over to me later. And he said, and if it doesn't turn out cloudy, without a doubt, you will be the greatest, healthiest president we've ever had in the White House. Just as long as it doesn't turn out cloudy. And when the president went to bed that night, he was saying his prayers, and he said, dear Lord, please help me make this one thing perfectly clear. I used to play football. You played football, didn't you, for Kentucky? I used to play football. I played football for the late Paul Brown, one of the finest men who ever lived. And one day I was playing, and we were playing. Our team was playing. I was sitting on the end of the bench, and the folks were up in the stands was yelling out, "We want Brooks! We want Brooks! We want Brooks!" And finally, Coach Brown called me up and said, "Brooks?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Why don't you go up there and see what they want?" He came in the locker room one day after we won a game. He said, I called his wife. He said, "Honey, we won today." She said, "Honestly?" He said, "That's beside the point." I went home one day, and dinner hadn't been prepared yet. And I wondered why it hadn't been prepared. I said, where's my dinner? And she said, "I went to a women's lib today, and I listened to all the things that the ladies had to say, and by golly, if you want your dinner, you just go fix it yourself." Well, cooking is my hobby, and I didn't mind fixing it, so I fixed it. And when I finished, when I finished my dinner, I said, "Hon, would you give me one of my cigars, please?" And she said, "What did I tell you a while ago? I'm women's lib from now until freezes over." And I said, "Well, you go get your cigar yourself," she said. I said, "How would it be if you didn't see me for about 3 days?" She said, "That would suit me just fine." So the next day, Wednesday, she couldn't see me at all. Thursday, she couldn't see me. And Friday, she could just barely see me out of this one eye over here. Is that a good one? You never heard that one before? Want me to tell it again? When I was in, excuse me, I was in Rochester, New York for a few years, and I was a disc jockey. And one morning I got a new sponsor, Orange Tang. And I remember that. And I remember having that at home, and it was good. I liked it very much. You ever have Orange Tang? That's nice. Well, I liked it very much, but I decided to make my own. I made it out of prunes. And Orange Tang is wonderful, but I think a little prune tang goes a long way once in a while. Last summer, while I was here, my brother Pleasant called, asked if I wanted to play golf one day. I said, "You know I don't play golf. I just tried it at the tournament, the contest out there." And he said, "Well, we're having a little thing over there, a little tournament, and over at Bellarmine College, Bellarmine, right?" And I said, "Well, I can't. I don't play well enough." He said, "It doesn't make any difference." He said, "They'd love to have you come over and join the crowd." And they got a lot of prizes. And it doesn't make any difference how you score, which is something I haven't done for 10 years. And he says, "You have a chance to win a very nice prize." So I went over, and they showed me the courtesy of letting me hit first. And I went up, and I put one of those little sticks in the ground. Then I put a ball on it, and I swung at it, and I was really happy. I knocked it way out in the field there. And they started me out. They knew I'd never played before, and they started me out with 24 brand new balls. And when I hit the ball out there, a gentleman came up and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Mr. Brooks, would you like to have a caddy?" And I thought I won a prize. I thought I won a car. By the time I got to the 8th hole, I didn't have any balls left. And I looked at my caddy. I said, "You got to be the worst caddy in the whole world." He said, I don't think so, Mr. Brooks. That'd be too much of a coincidence." I remember I accidentally hit a tree and got in the fairway, and I was looking at the ball and looking off toward the green. And I tried to make my caddy or somebody who might be hearing it think that I knew something about what I was doing. I said, "Son, do you think I can get home from here with a 4-iron? He said, "I don't even know where you live." A fellow went home from church one day. He had a big black eye, and he His wife said, how in the world did he get that? And he said, well, when we got up to sing him, some lady got up and in front of me, and you can tell from the way she was sitting, her dress was stuck in the back. And I just thought I'd help her out, and I reached over and I pulled it down. And she turned around and hit me with her purse. Well, the next Sunday he came over home from church, and he had another black eye on the other side. And that same lady was standing in front of him when they were singing to him. He looked, and everything was just fine, but he said, heck, she likes it the way it was, I guess. And she, I was in the Navy, and one day I came upstairs from below deck, and I came up to the captain, and I said, Captain, is it okay if I go downstairs and get something to eat? He said, you go downstairs and get some. How long you been in the Navy, sailor? I said, about 6 weeks, sir. He said, well, for your information, downstairs on board ship is below deck. For your further information, that's forward, that's aft, that's starboard, that's port. If you ever make another mistake like that again, I'll throw you through one of those little round windows over there. Oh, yeah, I don't know what reminds me of this other than my brother-in-law that I was telling you about, Frank, was an astronaut, He wasn't too dumb. And he went up one day, and while they were going around and around, it came time for one of them to take a I bet you thought I was going to say something else. But to take a walk in space. Excuse me, please. I got a frog in my throat. First piece of meat I've had in a week. And so my brother-in-law got out. No, the other fellow got up and opened the trap door and went out into space, and he was walking in there for about a half hour, and pretty soon it's time for him to get back in the capsule, and he got out the door. He knocked on the door. My brother-in-law said, "Who is it?" It was, let's see, he told me, we were at his house one night, he said, we're going to make a capsule to take us up to the sun. I said, what are you talking about? Sun. You'd burn up before you got halfway there. He said, no, we're going at night. I don't know what happened with my marriage, but something happened to it, and Terry decided that we should be sleeping in separate bedrooms. And yeah, you come over tonight, and I'll show you why. And let's see. I woke up one morning in my bedroom about 3 o'clock in the morning, and something made me think maybe we shouldn't be sleeping in separate bedrooms. So I walked down the hallway and tried, and her door was locked. So I just knocked on her door, and she said, "You just get away from there. I know what you're knocking for." I said, "Yeah, but you don't know what I'm knocking with." Let's see. One morning, I already started this and I didn't finish it. My mother used to wring a chicken's head off, and bring it in the house and pluck it. And that's what she said she was doing with it. And then she got down to these little pin feather, really little hairs sticking out of the skin, And she used to take it over to the gas range and turn it over to the flame and burn those little hairs off of there, And Terry was doing that one day with a chicken. What else? And so she said, well, to herself, she thought, well, he's not using his Schick electric razor anymore. Why not try that on my bird? So she went in and got my Schick electric razor, and she brought it in and ran it over the bird, and it worked beautifully. And she wrote a letter to the Schick Electric Razor Company and told them about it. And they sent a letter back to her thanking her for the idea and sent her a $1,000 check. And they said, from now on, we're going to have 3 razors on the market. We'll have a man Schick, a lady Schick, and a chicken Schick. First day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 1 shot of gin and a partridge in a pear tree. On the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 1 shot of gin, 2 cans of beer, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 1 shot of gin, 2 cans of beer, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the fourth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 1 shot of gin, 2 cans of beer, 3 Burger King, and 4 glasses of wine, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the seventh day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 1 shot of gin, 2 cans of beer, a lot of peanuts and things, and a partridge in a pear tree. On the 9th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 1 shot of gin, 2 cans of beer, 3 shots of wine, and a kick in the she told her mother, and a bird in a bush. On the 10th day, 11th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 1 can of beer, 2 shots of gin, 4 glasses of scotch, and some other stuff, and a partridge in the tree there. And on the 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me all of those things I said before, and a turkey, a duck, and a partridge in a pear tree. I'm a little worried tonight. I have a note at the bank, and of course I have my wife, and I have a girlfriend. All 3 of them are 30 days past due. My wife, I don't know what happened to my marriage, but we weren't doing too well. Or I wasn't doing too well anyway. I went to the doctor and I told him about my sex drive. He said, "Oh, come on, it's all in your head." I said, "I know, I want you to lower it." That'll come out. He, let me see, what did he say? Oh, about the circus. Yeah, I was telling him about the circus, wasn't I? Well, I'd sit there many a morning on the curb and watch the parade go by, you know, dreaming and thinking that maybe someday I'd grow up and be a clown in a circus. Of course, my dream never came true. It came half true. I grew up. And in fact, I did join a circus when I was about 21, 22 years old, and that's where I met my wife, Terry. We were aerial performers. We were known as Brooks and Brooks, world-famous aerialists. And I used to catch my wife in the act 2 or 3 times a night. I possibly could have used another way to phrase that, but she was what they call a swinger, and I was a catcher. And she doesn't swing anymore, and I wouldn't know what to do if I caught her. One day I was out among the cages where they caged the animals and kept them there, you know. And there was a little boy there with a lady, and he wanted to see the monkeys, but there were no monkeys in the cage. At least they couldn't see any of them. And there was a boy cleaning up around there, and the lady said, "Son, why aren't there any monkeys in the cage?" He said, "Well, this is a monkey mating season. And they're up in those little hutches you see around the tops of the cages." And she said, "Well, do you think if I buy a bag of peanuts and shake them down here at the bottom of the cage, they'd come out?" He said, "Would you?" I had a brother went home one night. His wife was standing before a mirror admiring a mink coat. He said, "Where in the heck did you get the mink coat?" She said, "I won it playing bingo." The next night he went home, and she was marrying a double strand of pearls. He said, "Where'd you get the pearls?" She said, "I got them playing bingo." The next night it was a gold wristwatch she had on with diamonds in it. He said, "I suppose you got that playing bingo?" She said, "Yes, I did. And I'm going to play some more tonight. Laura and I are going out. And incidentally, would you please draw my bath?" And he said, "All right." So he put about an inch of water in the bathtub. He says, "Your bath is ready." And she came in and looked at it, and she said, "Why didn't you put more water in there?" He said, "I didn't want to get your bingo card wet." I don't know what suddenly reminded me of this, but I'm thinking back to the Second World War. I was living in Buffalo at the time. I told you, I think, that Terry lived in Buffalo, and that's where I met her. I met her in a blacksmith shop, and she said, "I wish you would tell, when you say that, I wish you'd tell the folks that I was looking at some wrought iron designs, and that's what I was doing in there." I said, "You were not. You were trying on a pair of shoes." But anyway, that's where I got that little card all you men must have gotten one. Some of you, not old enough to have gotten them, some of you. But it had on there, from the President of the United States, the greetings. The President of the United States requests that you go to the induction center on such a date for possible induction into the military service. And so what the heck, I thought the President of the United States was nice enough to write to me. I ought to be nice enough to go down there and let him look at me. And I went down. A bunch of us fellas in my neighborhood got together and they picked us up in a great big bus. And they took us down. It was in the wintertime. And they took us down to the induction center. We got out, we went into the induction center, and we all sat down there waiting for whatever. And somebody, finally, I got to this doctor, and he checked me out and checked me all over, you know, and looked at me and this, and he finally put a piece of paper down and hit it with a rubber stamp. And so he said, all right, go in that door there, son. And I went in the other door, see another doctor. He said, the first thing it did was make us take off all of our clothes. And we were standing there in our birthday suits. You know, you couldn't help but be reminded of that famous quotation of one of our great presidents, all men are created equal. I could give him a little argument in that department, I guess. They lined us all up in front of this big, long, cold marble bench and said, sit down. And we sat down, and it sounded like a bunch of people applauding. That was really cold. I can't tell you exactly how cold it was, but when we were standing there, a sergeant came up and looking at all of us, you know, and he finally looked at me. He says, are you sure you're in the right room, lady? People who know me real well know that I have a very fine memory. I remember things that happened way back when I was 2 years. In fact, I remember one thing that happened before I was born. I remember going to a picnic with my dad and coming home with my mom. I was on, one time, Terry and I were on a TV show. You may remember it was called Tattletales. And it was run by the late Bert Convy, a wonderful person. He was just a doll of a guy, honest to goodness. And he asked me, that's when they would ask the husbands a question. Then they'd hide the husbands and bring the wives out. And they'd tell the wives what the question was that they asked their husband, and asked the wife to guess how did your husband answer this question? Well, anyway, they said to me, during a romantic interlude, this is something I can't remember anymore, which do you prefer, the foreplay or the afterglow? I said, well, at my age, I don't have any time for any foreplay. And when the afterglow sets in, I'm sound asleep. He said, you're on an airplane, sitting by the window, and the airplane is crowded, and you see the attendant coming back with a man, looks like he played professional football, great, big, heavy, muscular fellow. And the only seat on the plane that was vacant was the one right next to you on the aisle. And you heard him say to the girl, look, honey, I'm not hungry, I'm not thirsty. I'm sleepy, and I'm going to sleep, and I don't want anybody to touch me. Anybody touches me, I'll kill them. So you take off, and you're halfway to where you're going, and you suddenly feel the urge. And you look at him, and he's got the seat all crowded, and there's no way to get out without touching him. And my stomach was getting upset. And you remember what he said, don't touch him or he'll kill you. And he said, what? And there wasn't anyone, they didn't have any of those little bags on there that they usually have. And he says, what would you do? I said, I'd throw up on him. He said, you'd throw up on him? I said, yeah. And then when he woke up, I said, do you feel better now? We used to go to the Rams football game in California almost every time they played at home. And I was sitting there one time. We were sitting there one time, and I looked over at the aisle, and there were two nuns coming up. I had never seen any nuns at the game before, and they were in those outfits that have the big headdress that goes way out like that, like the, I think this is a Mother Superior at the hospitals, you know, and real wide. Someone told me it was the Order of the Coronet, and I don't know if that's so or not, but anyway, they came up and they walked into the aisle in front of our aisle, and they sat down directly in front of two guys sitting next to us. And they became a little unruly, I think, impolite, and one of them said, how you like that? You could travel 100 miles to see a football game, and you have to sit in back of something like that. The other one said, yeah, I'd like to get away from here and sit someplace else. And the other guy, real smart, you know, he said, I wish I could go anywhere just so there were no Catholics around. And one of the nuns turned around and said, why don't you go to hell? There are no Catholics down there. Do you know that there was a fellow, one day he went to, he was at a bar room, and he thought, gee, I haven't been to church for a long time. I've been such a sinner. I better go over and see the Father and confess my sin and straighten myself out with the church. So he went over to the church, and he was walking down the aisle, and the Father was walking up, and the Father said, Joe, is that you? He said, yes, Father, that's me. He said, well, for heaven's sake, I haven't seen you in years. He said, I know, Father, and I've been thinking about all the sins I've been committing, and I thought I haven't been to confession, and I better go to confession, and so that's why I'm here to see you. He said, well, that's a great idea, Joe, but it's very obvious as you had a little party, and I think it'll be much better if you go home and sleep this party off, and then come back tomorrow morning and see me, and I'll be here at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you be here, and I'll hear your confession. He said, okay.
He said, but I think you better hear me now. I've been pretty bad. He said, oh, you couldn't have been that bad. He said, you did. I mean, what did you do? He said, well, I stole an apple off a stand, and I've been cursing a lot, and a lot of things I shouldn't do, ratting around on my wife. And he said, well, you didn't kill anybody, did you? He said, what? He said, you didn't kill anybody, did you? He said, no, I didn't kill anybody. Who said I did? He said, no one, but I just wonder if it was that bad. He said, no, I didn't. He said, all right, you go on home, and I'll see you in the morning. Now, you live just around the corner, be careful. He said, I'll go out there and get hit by a truck. Then where would I be? He said, that you don't have to go on the street, just walk around the corner and go to your home. And he said, okay, so he's going home, and he's walking down the stairs of the church, and a friend of his named Charlie was coming up the steps, and he was in his same condition. And Joe said, what do you say, Charlie? He said, hey, hi, Joe. He said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to confession. He said, you're going to confession? He said, yeah, I go every Saturday. He said, come here a minute. He said, what do you want? He said, come here a minute. He walked up to him. He said, what the heck you want? He said, you're going to confession? He said, yeah, I just told you I was going. He said, did you kill somebody? He said, what? He said, did you kill somebody? He said, well, heck no, I didn't kill anybody. He said, well, the heck with it. Let's go get a beer. He's only hearing murder cases today. My brother Tom, when he was well, he got married. Was it Tom? He got married to a girl about 21 years old, and she was about to kill him. It's a nice way to go, but I mean, yeah, he went to the doctor and told him. He said, she's about to kill me. I can't take this anymore. And the doctor says, well, you ever think of charging her every time? He said, oh, how in the world are you going to charge your wife for something like that? He said, well, if she's going to kill you, you might as well try it. So he went home, and he walked in the door, and she was about to grab him. He said, hold it, jump ball. She said, what are you talking about, jump ball? He said, I just went to the doctor about you, and he told me you had to pay me every time. And he said, $5 on the kitchen floor, $10 on the divan, and $20 on a king-size bed. So she reached her pocket, grabbed a $20 bill and handed it to him. He said, oh boy, at least it's on the king-size bed. She said, no, I want 4 on the kitchen floor. My brother Tom used to have a farm here in Kentucky, just a little bitty farm, but he grew, on that farm he grew apples and apples, and Tom grew apples and my brother Tom had this farm. And he grew apples and hickory nuts. And this past
fall he had a wonderful harvest. Had barrels and barrels of hickory nuts and barrels of apples. And he kept them down in his cellar where it was kind of cool, and they would say nice for spring shipping, you know. And he went down there one day, and he discovered that some animal was stealing some of the nuts and some of the apples. And he went over to Sears and his partner, and he bought a trap, bought 2 traps, one from each one of them, I guess. And he set one of the traps over by the hickory nuts, and one by the apples. And I was talking to him the other day, and he said he went down the cellar the next morning, and sure enough, there was a great big raccoon in one of those traps. I said, "Where'd you catch him, by the apples?" He said, "No." Well, I don't know if what the heck? Even when I go out all around the country and to England, we've been a few places. When I start to sing, I usually end my performance by singing a song or two, one at least. And I don't get up in the morning and go ha 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 and all that kind of business. I don't train. I've never had any vocal training, and so I don't know when I start to sing. I don't know if what do you say. What did you say? You didn't have to tell me you had no training. If you love me half as much as I love you, you wouldn't worry me half as much as you do. You're nice to me when there's no one else around. You only build me up to let me down. If you miss me half as much as I miss you, you wouldn't stay away half as much as you do. I know that I would never be untrue if you only loved me half as much as I love you. Thank you so much for helping us. You helped us a lot with your applause and your laughter and what's her name? She looked around like I pointed to someone else. Is that who it was? All right. Well, thank you, and drive carefully when you go home. And tomorrow, too.
There's some more food out there and some more drinks.
Yeah. Thank you. I always leave you on a high note.
Shrimp you can eat. Don't miss endless shrimp right now, only at Red Lobster.
What are you doing the rest of your life? North and south and east and west of your life. I have only one request of your life.